in on those very issues.
Thank you. Is this the end of the Russia investigation, sir?
Thank you. No. We're determined, no matter what wild goose chase the majority would take the country on, we are staying focused on conducting the Russia investigation, and that will go forward. We expect Mr. Bannon to come in on Wednesday, we're told by the majority. I did ask when Mr. Lewandowski would come back because he refused to answer precisely the same questions. They don't have a date for Mr. Lewandowski. Apparently they're holding Mr. Bannon to one standard and other witnesses like Mr. Lewandowski to another. But no, we press on. Thank you.
Have you heard back from Bannon's lawyer on the public?
This evening, I think we have crossed a deeply regrettable line in this committee where for the first time in the 10 years or so that I've been on the committee, there was a vote to politicize the declassification process of intelligence and potentially compromise sources and methods. I made a couple motions this afternoon or this evening. First, we scheduled the hearing today or the business meeting so that the minority memoranda could be made available to the members of the House that had been misled by the majority's memoranda. We expected that vote to be non-controversial, and it was. The House members will now have access to the minority memoranda. I made a secondary motion that prior to the public release of either memoranda, that the FBI and the Department of Justice have the opportunity to come and brief the entire House in a classified session on both memoranda, on the underlying facts and the underlying materials, so that the committee could make a responsible judgment as to whether the memoranda should be made public. That motion was voted down by the majority. The majority expressed a concern that something in the minority memoranda or otherwise could compromise sources and methods, and for exactly that reason we asked that both memoranda be vetted by the FBI and the Department of Justice, but that was voted down. I spoke with the director of the FBI earlier this afternoon. He expressed his strong interest in being able to brief our committee prior to any release of these materials about concerns that the Bureau and the Department have. I relayed that interest by the director of the FBI, appointee of President Trump, to this committee, but that was unavailing. They were not willing to meet with the director of the FBI to hear the Bureau's concerns or the department's concerns. Instead, they voted against allowing their own members, as well as the members of the broader House of Representatives, to be briefed by the Department of Justice and FBI on these memoranda. Finally, I moved that if the majority was going to release their memoranda publicly, that they release the minority views as well, that they be released jointly. And the majority, on a party line basis, voted against both memoranda being released to the public. They then took up their own memoranda and voted it out to make public. We had a separate vote on the minority memoranda, and the majority voted against allowing the public to see the minority memoranda. The release the memo crowd apparently doesn't want to release the memo now. The most they would do is say that at some indeterminate point, a week or so from now, they would consider whether to release the minority memo. We raised, of course, the transparently political objective behind this, which is to allow the majority to set a certain narrative for a week or so before they released a full statement of the facts from the minority. But nonetheless, this is where we are. We had votes today to politicize the intelligence process, to prohibit the FBI and the Department of Justice from expressing their concerns to our committee and to the House, and to selectively release to the public only the majority's distorted memo without the full facts. A very sad day, I think, in the history of this committee. As I said to my committee colleagues during this hearing, sadly, we can fully expect that the President of the United States will not put the national interest over his own personal interest. But it is a sad day indeed when that is also true of our own committee, because today this committee voted to put the president's personal interest, perhaps their own political interest, above the national interest, in denying themselves even the ability to hear from the department and the FBI. And that is, I think, a deeply regrettable state of affairs. But it does show how, in my view, when you have a deeply flawed person in the Oval Office, that flaw can infect the whole of government, and today, tragically, it infected our committee. And at this point, I'll yield to my colleagues.
Well, we're not talking about the investigation. We're talking about the distraction that they have created, and that's sad and unfortunate, because if you're a Democrat or Republican, you should care just as much about this. They attacked the democratic process. They hacked into boards of election, and one could imagine a scenario in which they were just as likely to attack a Republican candidate as a Democrat.
I should also mention that it was disclosed to the minority today for the first time that the majority has evidently opened an investigation of the FBI and an investigation of the Department of Justice. Under our committee rules, of course, that has to be the product of consultation with the minority, but we learned about that for the first time here today. Now, it has been publicly reported from time to time that there was a subset of the majority working on some kind of a investigation or inquiry into the Department of Justice and FBI, but apparently the chairman made it formal today. According to the majority, the FBI is under investigation, and so is the Department of Justice. This is a wholesale broadside against two of our respected institutions, and brings to mind something I brought to the committee's attention a week ago when we first took up the majority memo, and that is, we need to be concerned with not just what happens during this presidency, but the lasting damage that may be done to these institutions. And unfortunately, that damage just became all the more greater today.
Congressman, are you comfortable with how the DOJ handled the situation that's under review in those memos? Are you confident in what law enforcement officials did?
Well, I think the Department of Justice has done what they could, but the majority has been unwilling to share with them the nature of the concerns they have, their memoranda, to invite feedback from the department. And I think the department was all too accurate in saying that this is extraordinarily reckless. Why on earth would you not want to give the FBI and the Department of Justice the opportunity to come in and say, you're right, you're wrong, or here's what really happened? But they denied the department and the Bureau that opportunity, and I think that's a grave disservice to the hardworking men and women in both the FBI and the Department of Justice.
If you put the memo to one side, are you confident, Congressman, that there was no abuse of government surveillance systems by the Department of Justice and FBI during the 2016 campaign?
I certainly haven't seen any abuse of the investigative process by the FBI or the Department of Justice. What I have seen instead is a deliberate attempt from the very beginning of this investigation to distract attention from the Russia probe. What we saw today is only the most recent chapter of a series of events that began the day after the first hearing of our investigation. On March 20th, James Comey came before our committee and testified for the first time that the FBI had opened a counterintelligence investigation involving the Trump campaign. The very next day, our chairman went on what has become known as the midnight run to obtain documents that he would the following day go to present to the White House, claiming that they showed evidence of an unmasking conspiracy of the Obama administration. We would very soon learn that, in fact, he'd obtained that information from the White House, and it was a charade. That charade was designed to do the White House's bidding. And I'm afraid today is just a continuation of that same priority of the chairman and that same phenomenon. This is an effort to circle the wagons around the White House and distract from the Russia probe.
Mr. Chair, from what we understand, Christopher Wray did come up to Capitol Hill this weekend and did review the memo. You've had conversations with Mr. Wray. Did that review satisfy the Justice Department's concerns? And number one. And number two, what was the rationale that the committee gave for not releasing your memo?
No, the review did not satisfy, I think, either the Bureau or the Department's concerns, and indeed the Director of the FBI asked for the opportunity to come before the committee and express those concerns, but that request was denied by the Chairman today.
And what was the rationale for your memo? Why is that not being released publicly as of now?
Well, Mr. King made the request to release the majority memoranda, and in his statement advocating its release said that we need full transparency. And so when I moved to have the minority memo released in the interest of full transparency, they evidently took the view that full transparency means only one side gets hurt and not the other. So they voted down the opportunity for the country to see the minority memoranda and, frankly, an accurate recitation of the underlying facts.
With the resignation of Andy McCabe, is there concern that Nunes' memo is going to show that perhaps he may have been involved anyhow in perhaps the issues that the GOP is bringing up right now?
I would only say, because at this point I can't comment yet on the contents of the majority or minority memoranda, that I think Mr. McCabe has been deeply and unfairly maligned. He has been a career public servant with the FBI. I think he has done an admirable job serving the country, and I think that this committee and others have done a tremendous disservice to Mr. McCabe.
The CIK said party lines. The final vote on the Nunes memo was that along party lines.
All votes.
And also, is there a chance that the memo could be released before the 5-day window, or do you all have to wait for 5 days to see what Trump says under committee?
The vote to release the majority memo and the vote to deprive the minority of having its memo released was on a party line basis. Both of those votes were party line basis. In terms of the timetable, this has never happened in my experience in the committee, so we're on uncharted waters. But if the president expresses the view short of 5 days, hey, I'm perfectly copacetic with anything being published that helps me, I don't know that they have to wait 5 days. And the White House has made it abundantly clear that they want the memo published even though they haven't read it. That should tell you all you need to know about the president's priorities. Even without reading it, even without hearing from the intelligence agencies or the FBI what damage it might do in terms of public release, it's clear they already want it released. I think, as one of my Tea Party colleagues said all too candidly, he was sure the president was going to want to release the majority spin memo because it was good for him. And that is apparently the standard now for the release of classified information. If it's good for the president, then fine, regardless of its impacts on the Bureau, on the Department, or on the interests of justice.
Was there any, Mr. Schiff, what does this say?
That could be subject to an interagency review and make sure that there will be screening to ensure that national security is preserved.
Did Director-
You don't have confidence that that review will indeed take place, or redact the memo as necessary?
I have no confidence that that review will take place of the majority memo.
Did Director
in
Wray
fact,
tell you there was classified
if
information
I
in the
could.
memo?
In fact, I think it's quite clear that the majority has no intention of having this vetted by the Department or the Bureau. And at least, gleaning from what the White House has said over the weekend, it doesn't look like they have much of an intention to vet it either, that the conclusion is pre-cooked. We did make it clear that if and when the majority allows the minority memoranda to see the light of day, we are going to do the responsible thing, and we are going to seek to have the Department of Justice and the FBI redact anything from our memo that could compromise sources and methods.
Was there any consideration of releasing through a voter the underlying intelligence behind the memo?
That was not the subject of a motion today. The last thing I'll mention is that I also moved that the transcript of the open proceeding be made available to the public tomorrow. The chair committed that that would happen as soon as possible because I think you need to read the transcript to see my colleagues, on the one hand, argue for full transparency and then vote down a motion to make public the minority memoranda. And I think you need to see them express concern about possible compromise of sources and methods and then vote down the opportunity to have the Department of Justice and FBI weigh in on those very issues.
Is
Thank
this
you.
the end of the Russia investigation, sir?
Thank you.
Is it
No, we're determined, no matter what wild goose chase the majority would take the country on, we are staying focused on conducting the Russia investigation, and that will go forward. We expect Mr. Bannon to come in on Wednesday, we're told by the majority. I did ask when Mr. Lewandowski would come back because he refused to answer precisely the same questions. They don't have a date for Mr. Lewandowski. Apparently they're holding Mr. Bannon to one standard and other witnesses like Mr. Lewandowski to another. No, we press on. Thank you.
We heard back from Bannon's lawyer. All right, everybody, that was Congressman Adam
To give the
Schiff
FBI
there.
Department of Justice the opportunity to come in and say,
Again, Congressman
you're right,
Adam
you're
Schiff. We're
wrong,
going to wait
or
and
here's
see if anybody else.
what really happened. But they denied the department and the Bureau that opportunity, and I think that's a grave disservice to the hardworking men and women in both the FBI and the Department of Justice.
If you put the memo to one side, are you confident, Congressman, that there was no abuse of government surveillance systems by the Department of Justice and FBI during the 2016 campaign?
I certainly haven't seen any abuse of the investigative process by the FBI or the Department of Justice. What I have seen instead is a deliberate attempt from the very beginning of this investigation to distract attention from the Russia probe. What we saw today is only the most recent chapter of a series of events that began the day after the first hearing of our investigation. On March 20th, James Comey came before our committee and testified for the first time that the FBI had opened a counterintelligence investigation involving the Trump campaign. The very next day, our chairman went on.
Stocks were down. The Dow lost 177. The S&P 500 fell 19. The Nasdaq gave back 39. Next up, we'll talk about the State of the Union, immigration, and what the president is going to say with the panel.
You take care of business. Let Office Depot Office Max take care of you. This week, all Dell PCs are up to 25%.
The Russia probe.
Mr. Chair.
Even though they haven't read it.
The Dell monitor and make sure you protect your investment. Office Depot Office Max. OfficeDepot.com.
Imagine the possibilities. With Interactive Brokers One World account, you can borrow against your account at the lowest rates. And your idle balance earns high interest, or even more by lending your shares. Plus, with the Interactive Brokers Debit MasterCard, spend anywhere that MasterCard is accepted. With direct access to over 100 global exchanges, you have the power to invest at lower cost. And all in one account. Transfer your account today at ibkr.com/oneworld. Interactive Brokers. One world, one account.
How does this Westminster champion keep his joints moving?
I give CJ Cosequin every day. In my opinion, it's the gold standard. CJ's been on it since he was 2 years old.
Cosequin Joint Health Supplements, available at veterinarians and pet aisles nationwide.
The State of Our Union. Before the president's big address, get the smart expert insight you need. Don't miss a minute of our must-see lineup, live from D.C. tomorrow.
Hi babes. You know how bras are super expensive and the department store lady is always really pushy?
I just found the cutest lingerie website ever. It's called Adore Me.
Check out this lace.
They have tons of bras,
PJs,
underwear, all from petite to plus.
I know your phone's out, so look them up.
You can get your first bra and panty set
for $25.
I'm obsessed.
You love it too, right babe?
Valentine's Day special. Your first set starts at just $14.95 with VIP membership at adoreme.com.
Just because you're cooking at home doesn't mean you can't travel the globe. Plated is the meal kit for people who love food. So you can explore the world without ever leaving your kitchen. Our diverse menus include 20 globally inspired chef-designed recipes and 2 delicious desserts every week. And our flexible plans fit every table and schedule. Get everything you need to make amazing dinners in one completely customized box. From pre-portioned, high-quality ingredients to easy-to-follow recipe cards, so you can create home-cooked meals that will impress your entire family. Let Plated be your passport to unforgettable dinners every week. Get 25% off your first 4 weeks at plated.com/25x4.
We've got an economy that is booming. ISIS is on the run. We're remaking the judiciary in a way that actually believes in upholding the Constitution. There are some great things happening in this country, and I think you can expect to hear the president talk about a lot of those, not only what we've been able to do in the first year, but all of the great things that we're going to do in the next 7 years after this.
White House Press Secretary previewing the State of the Union address. It will be called A Safe, Strong, and Proud America, focusing on jobs in the economy, infrastructure, immigration, trade, and national security. And it comes obviously at a time when there's a lot of focus on all of that. We're back with the panel. Molly, your thoughts on the big speech tomorrow?
Well, I am not as big of a fan of State of the Unions as many people are. I'm sure it'll be a quality speech. He has a lot President Trump has a lot that he can refer to over the previous year in terms of accomplishments. It was a really chaotic and tumultuous year, but when it comes to successes in the foreign policy realm, economic realm, and otherwise, he has a lot that I'm sure he will be bragging about if his character continues to be the way it is. So it'll be more interesting for us to learn about what his plans are going forward. And a lot of people are talking about this infrastructure plan, which people thought might have been something he would have started his presidency with, but here we are a year later, and now might be the time for the infrastructure plan.
They're probably thinking it's a midterm election year. Will be an outreach to independents and Democrats somewhere in there and policy issues, bipartisan pitch in an effort to try to get some of those folks on board.
The suggestion is that the White House is signaling this. There will be outreach. There will be a conciliatory tone by Trump to Democrats and to independents on immigration, on infrastructure, as part of his 2018 agenda. I think Republicans have their fingers crossed that Trump will deliver a solid speech, stays on script, stays on prompter, and then doesn't do what he's done in the past, which is pick up his phone either late at night or early the next morning and engage in some sort of spat that's going to overshadow his speech. Because I think, as Molly said, he's got a lot that he can tout, specifically the bonuses from corporations and whatnot. I think Republicans really want that message to get out there. It's going to be, 40, 50 million people are going to watch this unfiltered of President Trump. And then they want to ride that narrative as long as they possibly can.
Yeah, countering the dark cloud that Nancy Pelosi says the tax law provides over Capitol Hill. The president's approval rating, job approval, in the latest Fox News poll, 45 approve, 53 disapprove. And you can see how that's changed. Opinions now favorable, unfavorable over time. Some just real quick interesting stats. Approval among Republicans is almost exactly where he was when he took office, 86% versus 87%. Trump voters at about 94% approval. Democrats, a high of 11% today. It was 10% when he took office. And independents, 38%. That's down 14 from his high of 52% in February 2017.
The approval rating polls on Donald Trump are causing a lot of us, at least me, to rethink how we read that particular indicator of American politics, because it's shown that in all this tumult, with the tremendous controversy around him, a lot of negative press, he's his own worst enemy on Twitter and so on, he still never goes below about 38. And it really seems to have not just a base, but like a bedrock of
94%.
Yes, of 42% of the American people are behind him. And you could say that's really low, or another way to look at it is that's pretty darn high, because those are the kind of, what it tells you is he has an unconditional support base, which any politician will tell you is the kind you want to have. It doesn't matter necessarily how big it is, but if it's passionate and intense, you can go a long way on it, and I think that has been the secret to his survival this year.
And you often hear it from places in the middle of the country that say there is this disconnect that continues after the election that we didn't report on accurately prior to the election, that continues today.
Yeah, and I would say it's actually not unconditional, but precisely because people are so pleased, people in the base of the party are so pleased with how surprisingly conservative President Trump has turned out to be, that they are showing huge approval numbers for him. And it's also a good reminder for other Republicans to think about how they can best capitalize on this. And for the media, who seem to be at the same levels of shrieking and freaking out as they were on the night he won election, it might be a good time to bring in some different voices who understand this huge swath of the population that's not well represented.
He won't, down the road very quickly, talk about the FBI or any of this stuff, you think?
I don't expect him to tomorrow night, no. I think that's a separate issue.
I wouldn't mind it if he did, but I'm not sure if he will.
Boy, you can believe he really wants to, but his staff would be horrified if he did.
And he's delivered big speeches before that have been big moments.
Well, last year's State of the Union was very,
the joint session, the speech in Poland, a lot of the Afghan speech, a lot of different speeches.
Even the speech in Davos last week was well received, and I think that's what Republicans are hoping, that he stays on script and delivers something like that.
Panel, thank you. Big day tomorrow. When we come back, the importance of a copy editor.
I have type 2 diabetes. I'm trying to manage my A1C, and then I learned type 2 diabetes puts me at greater risk for heart attack or stroke. Can one medicine help treat both blood sugar and cardiovascular risk? I asked my doctor. He told me about non-insulin Victoza. Victoza is not only proven to lower A1C and blood sugar, but for people with type 2 diabetes treating their cardiovascular disease, Victoza is also approved to lower the risk of major CV events such as heart attack, stroke, or death. And while not for weight loss, Victoza may help you lose some weight.
Victoza is not for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Do not take Victoza if you have a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer, multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you are allergic to Victoza or any of its ingredients. Stop taking Victoza and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck or symptoms of a serious allergic reaction such as rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. Serious side effects may happen, including pancreatitis. So stop taking Victoza and call your doctor right away if you have severe pain in your stomach area. Tell your doctor your medical history. Gallbladder problems have happened in some people. Tell your doctor right away if you get symptoms. Taking Victoza with the sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. Common side effects are nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, decreased appetite, indigestion, and constipation. Side effects can lead to dehydration, which may cause kidney problems.
Change the course of your treatment. Ask your doctor about Victoza.
Sandals. At last, an all-inclusive that truly includes it all. Sandals, the world's only 5-star luxury included resorts. Save up to 65%. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Let's see why people everywhere are upgrading their water filter to Zero Water. Start with water that has a lot of dissolved solids. Pour it through Brita's 2-stage filter. Dissolved solids remain? What if we filter it over and over? Oh dear. Thank goodness Zero Water's 5-stage filter gets to all zeros the first time. So maybe it's time to upgrade. Get more out of your water. Get Zero Water.
Wow, Wayfair has everything.
Drop the mic. Everything I need? I'm done. Drop the mic. Everything I need. Everything I like. Wayfair. Drop the mic.
Everything home, all in one place. So get it done. Visit Wayfair.com today.
In a town where words are the coin of the realm, the State of the Union address is perhaps the crown jewel. Aides are supposed to check everything, making sure no detail is overlooked. That's for the speech. So how did this happen? The ticket to tomorrow's big event has the correct date and time and place, but you look a little closer, you will spot the error in the one word that matters most in these divisive times, union. You don't spell that with an M, unium. At the Capitol, someone in the Sergeant at Arms office now realizes that they, on Capitol Hill, acknowledge the error. They are reprinting and redistributing the correct tickets. This one will not get you into the State of the Union. It is a collector's item, however, so we thought we'd point that out. Thanks for inviting us into your home tonight. That's it for this special report. Fair, balanced, and unafraid. The story, hosted by my friend and colleague Martha MacCallum, who is down the road here in Washington, starts right now. We'll see you tomorrow night.
We're going to see you at the State of the Union. Thank you, Brett. Kind of hate typos. Good to see you, Brett. Bring your overcoat tomorrow night. The story is live from Washington tonight as the president gets ready for that big address to the nation from the Capitol behind us tomorrow evening. It is very important, obviously, as a moment in the year-old Trump presidency. We will hear from the White House in just a moment about what to expect and if today's big events will come into play. High drama today as the deputy director of the FBI is, quote, removed from his post. A man the president has taken aim at over the past year. Good evening, everybody. I'm Martha MacCallum. Andrew McCabe stepped down just hours after his boss, FBI Director Christopher Wray, made a trip to the House Intel Vault on Sunday. Wray was there to take a look at that controversial memo that you have heard so much about that has been touted by Republicans as proof of government surveillance abuse during and after the 2016 election. And according to reports, the memo directly names McCabe and others, including his ex-FBI boss, James Comey. And moments ago, the House Intelligence Committee has now voted to release the FISA memo. It has been described by some who have seen it as revealing, quote, KGB-style tactics by the Obama administration and even as a Watergate Part 2. So is it? Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry joins me live here on the set in D.C. with the backstory tonight. Hi, Ed.
Good to see you, Martha. Critics of the president are trying to paint Andrew McCabe's ouster as part of a pattern of the president attacking various people who are investigating him, investigating the White House. But also McCabe may have seen the handwriting on the wall himself about his own conduct during the Obama administration that may be about to spill out because of that memo you mentioned. Specifically, we've learned Chris Wray quietly came up here to Capitol Hill on Sunday to view that Republican memo about Obama administration surveillance of Trump officials. The Daily Beast reporting the memo suggests McCabe was involved in FISA abuse. Specifically, Republicans suggesting McCabe and other officials like the number 2 at the Justice Department, Rod Rosenstein, may have used that unverified dossier paid for by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign to get FISA warrants to spy on former Trump foreign policy advisor Carter Pate. White House allies have also been exercised by those text messages between FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page talking about a meeting in McCabe's office that could produce what they called an insurance policy of a Trump probe if somehow he won the election. Now, the president used several tweets to rip McCabe. Specifically, December 23rd, about McCabe's wife running for state office in 2015 with backing from Clinton allies. Quote, how can FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, the man in charge, along with leaking James Comey of the phony Hillary Clinton investigation, including her 33,000 illegally deleted emails, the president tweeted, be given $700,000 for his wife's campaign by Clinton puppets during the investigation? Today, the White House insisted they had nothing to do with the ouster.
Look, the president stands by his previous comments, but in terms of the situation today, as I just said, we've seen the reports just as all of you have. We don't have any specific comments, and I would refer you to the FBI for any specifics.
But this afternoon, we also spotted Rosenstein and Wray leaving the White House after a meeting with Chief of Staff John Kelly, who on behalf of the president has been pressuring Attorney General Jeff Sessions to let this Republican memo be released, despite objections from Justice and FBI officials. That memo could show wrongdoing by McCabe and others. The other key point is that the Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz is expected to release an explosive report in the next few weeks looking at the handling of the Clinton email matter by McCabe and others. So the big question tonight is when that report hits and this memo that the House Intelligence Committee has now voted to release, if that's released, will there be more resignations at the FBI and the Justice Department?
So there was Department of Justice pushback on this memo and releasing the memo. So one of the only real dynamic that changed in that picture is that Christopher Wray now read it.
He's read it and said he wanted to go back and talk to others at the FBI about what their objections may be. Adam Schiff, the top Democrat, is saying, look, what the Republicans on this committee have done is unfair, that they've taken information out of context, made it seem like Andrew McCabe and others committed wrongdoing when maybe they didn't. Here's the bottom line tonight. Now that the House Intelligence Committee, led by the Republicans, they have the majority, have voted to release this memo, the president has 5 days to either block that or not. There are some rumblings tonight that the president may just put that out there over the next couple of days.
Ed, thank you very much. Ed Henry reporting tonight. And here with more, Judge Andrew Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst, back in New York tonight. Judge, what do you make of this so far tonight?
Well, we have a bit of a standstill with respect to the committee because in response to this Republican-drafted 4-page memo based on raw intelligence data, the Democrats have drafted their own memo, which they say is based on the same raw data, and the committee voted to release the Republican version, but not the Democrat version. I'm of the view that when Chris Wray, the director of the FBI, went to the House Intelligence Committee safe vault on a Sunday afternoon to read the 4-page memo, he saw something in there about Andrew McCabe, which was the straw that broke the camel's back for him, and decided that it was time for McCabe to go. I don't think Chris Wray saw the Inspector General's report. That would be highly irregular for him to see the Inspector General's report before it came out. But remember, Martha, you just reported a few minutes ago that the Justice Department last week cautioned the House Intelligence Committee against releasing the report when no one from the Justice Department had seen the report. In fact, as far as we know, the only human being from the Justice Department who has seen the report is the director of the FBI yesterday afternoon.
So in terms of what happens now, and you know, just to also mention, there was a story last week that Christopher Wray was being pressured to let Andrew McCabe go, and that he had pushed back on that. So now, for whatever reason, and you know, it may be the reasons that we've just talked about here, the revelations to Mr. Wray about these memos, he appears to have changed his mind based on something that he saw or read, or perhaps information that he passed along to Andrew McCabe and said, you know, you should know this. You may want to get out in front of this.
Right. So we don't know if Andrew McCabe was pushed or if he jumped, but we do know it followed so closely in time Director Wray's view of not only the 4-page memo, but most likely, because he has a top secret clearance as director of the FBI, but most likely the underlying raw intel on which the memo was based, that he went to his colleague and longtime friend Andrew McCabe and said, I don't think you want to confront this. I think it's time for you to go. Now, what's in the memo?
So in terms of the FISA process, Judge, because, you know, obviously there's a judge that approves, there's a panel of judges that approve these requests. So that's supposed to be the stopgap in these situations.
Yes.
When, you know, if something phony from a dossier is brought before these judges, they're supposed to have the discretion and the judgment to say, this doesn't add up.
But a judge's discretion is only as good as the evidence that is brought before him. And in this unique situation, and I've been very critical of it, as you know, where the court meets in secret and there's nobody there on the other side. The court meets with lawyers and agents from the NSA and generally accepts what they say. We'll ask a few probing questions, but if they give garbage to the court, then garbage is going to come out in the form of the warrant that the court will sign. Question: did they knowingly, did anybody in the FBI or the NSA knowingly mislead a federal judge in order to get the judge to sign a warrant? If the answer to that is yes, then heads will roll, not just discipline from the DOJ, but criminal prosecutions of the people who misled this judge.
Judge, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Joining me now live here in Washington, Anna Palmer, senior Washington correspondent for Politico and co-author of The Daily Playbook. Byron York, chief political correspondent for The Washington Examiner. Jason Chaffetz, former House Oversight Committee chairman. Both are Fox News contributors, the two gentlemen here. Good to see you all tonight. Anna, let me start with you because, and actually let me start by playing what Adam Schiff had to say tonight, because there's two different memos floating around. One is the one that the Democrats think is the accurate one. The other is the one that the Republicans have put stock in. Let's watch.
Today, this committee voted to put the president's personal interest perhaps their own political interest above the national interest, in denying themselves even the ability to hear from the department and the FBI. When you have a deeply flawed person in the Oval Office, that flaw can infect the whole of government, and today, tragically, it infected our committee.
Anna.
I mean, I think this is just a stark example of how partisan things are in Washington right now. You have two different sides having two different sets of facts, and the fact that none of us have seen it, and there's a lot of speculation about what's in it, what's underlying documents that are actually informing this, is this fight is not going to stop tomorrow or next week if the president does decide that House Republicans can release this. This is going to go on for weeks, if not months.
You know, Byron, I can't believe that this document's not going to come out. The White House would like it to be out there. We've all spoken to lots of people on the Hill who believe that there's enough in here that looks bad that people have the right to see it.
Well, I believe it will come out. It's the president's decision alone to either release it or object to releasing it. By the way, if he objects to release it, the full House can still vote to release it. The president is not in control of this situation. And I would add one thing. I am told that the House Intelligence Committee did vote today to make the Democratic memo available to all members of the House in that secret room setting, which is exactly the process that they went through with the Republican memo.
So that's what they're saying, Jason Chaffetz, that, you know, we allowed everybody in the House to read the Republican memo. We're not going to release your version, the Democratic version, to them unless we go through that same process. Well, what do you think's going on here? Where are we on this?
Look, ultimately, we're going to get to a set of facts. There's been a lot of political barbs, but now we're going to have facts. I still believe, and I've been advocating for a long time, the most definitive view on this will be the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, 450 employees. They have been working on this. They're the ones that came up with the text messages. You know, when the FBI comes out and says, well, we can't find this month's worth of text messages, it was less than 48 hours that the Inspector General went back and found those. And so there's some deep systemic problems there. But that IG report, we've seen the precursors that it's about to be there. That actually gets shared with the White House and with the department in advance. And the last point I'd make is, I think it's naive to think this is just the FBI and just the Department of Justice. I think this memo will also address some others potentially within the intelligence community.
And what about within the Obama administration?
Well, most of this does go back to the campaign and the election of 2016. So you're going to talk about people that were there. Some of them are career, but the curious as to whether or not they spill over to some of the political appointees. But the unmasking is not just necessarily the FBI. It could be others.
So one of the things that has really surprised me in this, Anna, given all of the leaks that we've seen throughout the entire course of this story, is that the content of this is really not out there yet. But Trey Gowdy this weekend spoke with Chris Wallace and gave a little bit of a roadmap to what is in there. Let's watch this.
Do you want to know whether or not the primary source in these court proceedings had a bias against one candidate? Do you want to know whether or not he said he'd do anything to keep that candidate from becoming elected president?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that has been very surprising here is that there hasn't been very much information. There's been a little bit of drip here and there, but we really don't know what is going to be in the. It's only 4 pages, too. I mean, like, what actually.
Summary. It's a summary of all of the intelligence that Devin Nunes and the other Republicans on that committee feel is valuable in terms of their argument.
But to your point, Mr. Chaffetz, I mean, the point is here that there's going to be so many more documents that are obviously informing this. So I think this is just the first step of what is actually, even if they do release it and we do see those 4 pages, I mean, there's going to be a lot more questions that are going to be asked.
You know, I just want to put up a bit of an editorial today that was in the Wall Street Journal written by Daniel Hoffman, who says that he believes that the story is that the Russians were pulling the strings on the Democrat side and on the Republican side, and that's ultimately what we're all going to learn, that they loved the idea of Christopher Steele, former MI6 agent, dabbling in Russia to try to find some dirt on Donald Trump, and they felt like they could use it to both sides. It says there's a third possibility, namely that the dossier was part of a Russian espionage disinformation plot targeting both parties and America's political process, which really puts a fine point, perhaps if it's true, on all of this finger-pointing on both sides, Byron.
Congressional investigators have been thinking about this possibility for quite a while. We know that Fusion GPS was working with the Russians in the Anti-Magnitsky Act campaign. We know they were doing that. Now, if you look at the dossier, there's source A and source B and source C, and it's a former Kremlin official. It's a current Kremlin official. It's a business official who has ties to the Kremlin. And you think, wait a minute, maybe the Kremlin is behind some
playing
of
everybody.
this.
I mean, that was another editorial in the Journal today suggested that the Kremlin was playing Glenn Simpson, that they knew exactly what he was looking for, and they didn't particularly care who won the election, but they wanted to sow chaos in American democracy, which just makes them look bad.
No, I think that's absolutely right. But there are key facts in the development of this dossier that should have gone before a judge. Who paid for it? Who was behind it? Did they have political motivation? All of those things play into whether or not this dossier should have been used as a key fact to do something that we take very seriously in this country, that is spy on somebody in the middle of a political campaign.
I mean, you can just imagine, you know, if this theory is true, though, they're laughing all the way through this thing because everybody here is arguing about whether or not the dossier is real. Is it fake? Is it, you know, was it used to start an FBI investigation? No doubt there's some smug faces at the Kremlin if they were that smart. Thanks, you guys. Great to see you all tonight. So it will be the first State of the Union address from a president who has taught the nation in a year to expect the unexpected, really. White House senior advisor Mercedes Schlapp is here with a preview tonight. Plus, Hillary Clinton hails herself as a champion for women, but when confronted with her own Me Too situation, her own campaign manager says she failed to act. Philippe Reines, a former top advisor to Mrs. Clinton who worked on the campaign and is still part of her innermost circle, is here exclusively tonight to respond.
Sexism and misogyny are endemic in our society.
If you just sign that first
I'm
one
so
there.
sorry. I don't feel comfortable signing that.
I don't get the math here.
Was this the same car we talked about?
What's this dealer preparation fee?
I'm so sorry. This just is not.
What we talked about.
Get the car without the car salesman. Carvana.com, the better way to buy a car.
Are you hiring great people?
I get more talented people through the door through Indeed than any other job search that I use.
Indeed delivers 6 times more hires than any other job site. Post a job in minutes, and Indeed will help you zero in on just the right candidates. Plus, there are no upfront costs or long-term contracts.
Nothing has ever been this easy, this simple, and this effective.
Right now, start your first job posting with free premium placement. Search for greatness. Indeed, the world's #1 job site.
Check out Easy 8 from Nutrisystem.
Introducing new for 2018, Easy 8 from Nutrisystem. Our best program ever. Lose up to 8 pounds and 6 inches overall your first 2 weeks. Money back guaranteed.
I'm Marie and I lost 50 pounds on Nutrisystem.
Our biggest selection of foods and most frozen items ever. Delicious and convenient. Order your 28-day plan right now and we'll rush you Easy 8 with our new Turbo Takeoff Week with new foods. Plus a week of probiotic and delicious turbo shakes. All new NutriCurve bars and metabolism boosters. Free. A $70 value specially designed to rev your metabolism, help shrink your belly, and jumpstart your weight loss.
You'll see results right away.
Returning customer? Ask about our special offer just for you. Call or go online in the next 2 minutes and we'll throw in FedEx shipping free. Lose up to 8 pounds and 6 inches overall your first 2 weeks.
Go online or call 888-802-THIN right now and get Easy 8 with a Turbo Takeoff Week, plus bars, shakes, and metabolism boosters free.
From ordinary, and now far closer than you ever imagined. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
The surveillance memo's fate as outrage over the abuse grows. Do Americans have the right to know? Laura gets expert reaction tonight on the Ingram Angle.
Attention Medicare beneficiaries. Many people with Medicare may be able to get extra benefits and don't even know they're available. You may be able to get dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage included in your plan. The Medicare Coverage Helpline is accepting calls to see if you're eligible to enroll now. You may be able to get extra benefits including dental, vision, and prescription drug coverage.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jason Buchwald. Making sure you go to the doctor and taking all your medications as prescribed can help protect your health. To make it easier, you may now be able to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan that includes coverage for dental, vision, and prescription drugs. Help protect your health by choosing the right plan for you and get all the benefits you deserve.
Call to see if you may be able to get extra benefits, including dental, vision, and prescription coverage. Don't delay. Call to see if you're eligible to enroll and may be able to get extra benefits now. Call 800-347-1600. That's 800-347-1600.
Well, I hope it's going to be good. We worked on it hard, cover a lot of territory, including our great success with the markets and with the tax cut. And it's a big speech, an important speech. We cover immigration, and for many years, many years, they've been talking immigration. They never got anything done. We're going to get something done.
President Trump earlier, he is expected to announce tomorrow night plans for a massive overhaul of the nation's infrastructure. He has talked frequently about that, of course, starting on the campaign trail, and something that previous administrations have failed to deliver on, although they talked about it an awful lot. Watch.
I'm announcing my administration's efforts to transform travel in America with an historic investment in high-speed rail. We will rebuild 150,000 miles of our roads, enough to circle the world 6 times. We will lay and maintain 4,000 miles of our railways, enough to stretch from coast to coast. I'm going to keep on fighting alongside all of you to make sure that we're doing everything we can to rebuild America, not just rebuild one bridge, but I want us to rebuild every bridge.
Here now, Oklahoma Senator James Inhofe, chairman of the Subcommittee on Transportation and Infrastructure, the big buzzword in everything that we're talking about. Good to see you tonight, Senator. Thank you for being here.
Nice to be back with you.
You know, when you watch that, President Obama talked about a huge project.
It just sickens me, because I remember when he said that, I was sitting there, and he was the one who pushed through this $787 billion, and that turned into $836 billion, and he didn't do anything. You know what percent of that money actually went to infrastructure, to roads and highways and bridges? 3%. 3%. Now, that's just outrageous. Of course, all that money went to his environmental agenda and those things.
I mean, we remember also the shovel-ready jobs that he said, well, they weren't really as shovel-ready as we thought.
Yeah,
that was part of the same package.
He never had any intention to do any infrastructure with that.
All right, so you've also been frustrated with this White House so far on infrastructure action, haven't you?
No, I haven't been. He's ready for it now, and he'll be talking about it tomorrow night. And I think that'll be one of the main things, that and rebuilding the military would be the 2 main items.
So in terms of the expenditures that we're going to hear about tomorrow night, how much is the president going to commit to infrastructure? And we're already hearing from states and municipalities that they're worried that the burden's going to fall on them and that they don't have the money to do it.
Well, first of all, there will be an incentive there for states and for the private sector and for local governments, because the money, the differential between the $200 billion and the trillion, whatever it ends up being, is going to be, a lot of the incentives will be there for them to do it. There'll be other things like the WIFIA program, which they would change the definition so it can go to some other projects. But I'll tell you, the major area where money is going to be coming in, nobody believes it. They just don't, it's not logical. But the Democrats won't admit it. And yet this started with John Kennedy. This was his program. If you remember reading about it, you're too young to have been there, but you remember reading about it. What he said at that time was that we need more money for the Great Society programs. This is John Kennedy. He said the best way to increase revenue coming into the country is to reduce marginal rates. And he did. And the amount, actually 4 years after he reduced the rates, remember it was 90% down to 70% and all other comparable reductions.
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. But that's what happened. 4 years after that, that increased the total revenue coming into the country by 30%. Then along came Ronald Reagan, and I remember that one very well.
Because more people ended up having jobs. So the bottom line, because when you hear about the billions of dollars to be spent on infrastructure, it makes you realize how much money comes into the government from taxpayers across this country. And as you point out, based on this tax reform, it probably will even increase. But how do you prevent the swamp? I want to get this in before I lose time with you. How do you prevent the swamp from sucking that money up and you know, arguing that these projects belong in my state, in my city, and then it turns into, you know, sort of paying people off and having the money go to corrupt places?
Well, no, that's the defense that if we win the elections. and I think we will. We'll still maintain be a majority. But let's keep in mind, one thing is no one disagrees with this. For each 1% increase in economic activity, that translates into $3 trillion of additional funds that come in over a 10-year period. Now, again, I was going to give the example of Reagan, too, but there's not time for that. But every time we do this, money does come in. Now, the key is to keep enough conservatives in the House and the Senate, and along with this president, that isn't going to happen. We're going to have a huge amount of money coming in.
Got your work cut out for you in the midterms, and we'll be watching. Thank you very much.
Great.
It's good to see you, Senator. Thanks for being here. So coming up tonight, President Trump talking tough on terror at a high-level Security Council meeting today, what it means for our troops at home and abroad. Also, Hillary Clinton under fire after a bombshell report details how she once protected a top advisor who was accused of sexual misconduct. Philippe Reines, a member of her most innermost circle, is here with me tonight to respond to a bipartisan wave of critics labeling her a hypocrite this evening.
The double standard that applies to women in politics is alive and well.
I grew up in the projects, and so home ownership was not an option for us. My move to Charlotte just really opened up an entirely different world. And through my employment with Dress for Success, I can almost touch home ownership. Have you ever had a dream and then your dream comes true?
Needles, essential for vinyl, but maybe not for people with rheumatoid arthritis, because there are options, like an unjection. Xeljanz XR, a once-daily pill for adults with moderate to severe RA for whom methotrexate did not work well. Xeljanz XR can reduce pain, swelling, and further joint damage, even without methotrexate. Xeljanz XR can lower your ability to fight infections, including tuberculosis. Serious, sometimes fatal infections, lymphoma, and other cancers have happened. Don't start Xeljanz XR if you have an infection. Tears in the stomach or intestines, low blood cell counts, and higher liver tests and cholesterol levels have happened. Your doctor should perform blood tests before you start and while taking Xeljanz XR and monitor certain liver tests. Tell your doctor if you are in a region where fungal infections are common, and if you have had TB, hepatitis B or C, or are prone to infections. Needles, a must for vinyl. But for you, one pill a day may provide symptom relief. Ask your doctor about Xeljanz XR, an injection.
I hated our bathtub, but who has time for a remodel? Not this family. And then there's the mess. Then I heard about Bathfitter. They came in and put a beautiful new bathtub right over our old one. Bathfitter also has seamless walls that provide a watertight fit. There's no mess, no demolition, and they get it done in as little as 1 day. Plus, they provide a lifetime guarantee. Thanks to Bathfitter, I have a bathtub I love.
Call today or learn more at bathfitter.com.
Valentine's Day, huh? You're probably planning to think outside the box. My advice? Don't. This Valentine's Day, think inside the box.
Make a big impression this Valentine's Day. Introducing the perfectly paired collection from Pro Flowers and Sherry's Berries.
You're welcome.
Gold can become a lesser metal.
If after you succeed, you decide to settle.
Keep focused on what's ahead.
And keep yourself on course.
Because better is a never-ending quest.
The all-new Accord with Honda Sensing. Now with standard safety features that can help you stop or stay in your lane. It's our most impressive Honda ever.
Fox News Channel on Sirius XM. Your favorite shows on Channel 114. Plus, every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7. Channel 115.
If we are serious about building a better, stronger, fairer America, we need to be serious about supporting and nurturing our girls,
especially the young women who put their faith in this campaign and in me. I want you to know that nothing has made me prouder than to be your champion.
So Hillary Clinton has long presented herself as a champion and defender of women, building 2 presidential campaigns around that premise, really. But a bombshell report from the New York Times is telling a different story tonight. It details an incident in which Clinton refused to fire a senior advisor on her 2008 campaign, despite learning of some very disturbing complaints of sexual harassment against him. In moments, Philippe Reines, a former top advisor to Mrs. Clinton who worked on the campaign and is still part of her inner circle, is here on why Clinton has not apologized for this incident. But first, Trace Gallagher, live in our West Coast newsroom with the backstory for us tonight. Hi, Trace.
Hi, Martha. During the 2008 campaign, Hillary Clinton's faith advisor was a man named Bernd Strider. Every morning, he would send Mrs. Clinton scripture readings. Strider was also accused repeatedly of sexually harassing a young subordinate he apparently shared an office with. The young woman claims Strider, who is married, often rubbed her shoulders, inappropriately kissed her on the forehead, and sent her a string of suggestive emails. Her complaint eventually got the attention of campaign manager Patty Solis Doyle. Watch.
I interviewed all the parties involved. I looked at the evidence. I looked at some emails that he had sent. I had looked at other documents and came to the conclusion that there was sexual harassment involved, that the young woman was very credible.
Solis Doyle then recommended Bernd Strider be fired, but Hillary Clinton refused. Now, 9 years later, Clinton tweeted, quote, "A story appeared today about something that happened in 2008. I was dismayed when it occurred, but was heartened the young woman came forward, was heard, and had her concerns taken seriously and addressed. And the way the campaign addressed it is by allowing Bernd Strider to continue in his role and reassigning the young woman. The reason it's only now going public is because former Clinton associates were unwilling to talk about the events until the Me Too movement compelled them to speak with the New York Times." Remember, the 2016 Clinton campaign has been cited as an inspiration for Me Too, even though the primary factor of the movement, Harvey Weinstein, was a longtime friend and donor to the Clintons. And Hillary's latest shout out to female activists made headlines when she used one group's literal name. Watch.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for your feminism, for your activism, and all I can hope is you keep up the really important good work.
Can you say the name of the activist supporting?
And let me just say, this is directed to the activist supporting.
By the way, Bernd Strider, the man accused of harassment, also worked for a group that supported the 2016 Clinton campaign, but he was fired for numerous workplace issues, including harassing a young female aide. Martha.
Thank you, Trace. Joining me now, Philippe Reines, who worked on the 2008 presidential campaign and has been a trusted Clinton advisor for many years. Philippe, thanks for coming in tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Why didn't she just say, this was wrong, and I should have fired him, I made a mistake?
Well, you know, that's a question she's asking herself. And I think take a step back and look how she got to that point, because I do think lots of things went right before we talk about what may not have gone right. The campaign created an environment where a woman who was harassed, and she was, felt comfortable coming forward. She came forward, and there was a rigorous process that listened to her, that believed her, that then took her complaints and brought them to the candidate through the campaign manager. That's supposed to be how it works. There's no issue, there's no debate, there was no debate then or now.
There was a debate.
That what he did was wrong.
Let's play Patty Solis Doyle on CNN today. Watch.
I was disappointed by that tweet, that response. It was the wrong call. I wish she had said it was the wrong call. I wish she had said, you know.
Questions over the last few days, and she is probably coming up with the same answer that many others, including Patty,
she called this young woman and talked to her.
She did.
Are we going to hear from this young woman? Did she encourage her to come out?
She told her that we were in no way holding her back. that if she wanted to,
even if
she
she comes out and she wants to complain about Hillary Clinton and say, you know, that she did me wrong.
She should say whatever she wants. No one is stopping her except herself, and that should be respected. That's what she wants.
All right.
She told Secretary Clinton that she was happy with Secretary Clinton sharing their conversation if it helped in this discussion. And
are we going to hear more from Hillary Clinton on this?
We are, imminently.
Okay. Well, we'll stay tuned for that. We did hear from her last night on the Grammys in part of what was intended as a comedic moment. Let's play that.
He had a long-time fear of being poisoned. One reason why he liked to eat at McDonald's. Nobody knew he was coming, and the food was safely pre-made.
That's it. We've got it. That's the one.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
How's that okay for a former candidate, a former wife of a president of the United States, to go on a national awards show that's supposed to be for all Americans to have fun watching and go after the president of the United States?
I think, unfortunately, everything has become okay, but the same reason I think when I watch the NFC and the AFC championships, the football games, why has the NFL become politicized? This was a joke. This was funny. I think Nikki Haley overreacted. Don Jr., as is his want, overreacted. I think everyone needs to grow a sense of humor.
Well, let me ask you this, because here's what it made me think.
Politicizing. Reading a book is not politicizing.
No, I mean, it's a book that attacks the president and that has been undercut as being false on in numerous ways. So, I mean, I just think it's like a call about whether or not you want to be a classy person. Do you want to go on TV and demean the president of the United States in that way and make fun of him?
I would love to stay on for another segment and debate classiness between her and President Trump, but I don't think that that's
I thought if they went low, Dems were going to go high. I didn't see that last night out there. Well, I guess that's the decision. It made me think of Stanley McChrystal and how he was, the things that he said in the interview in Rolling Stone that were seen as, undercutting the president. It led to him leaving office. And I thought to myself, I'm trying to picture, a leader standing on the Grammy stage and showing and saying, their first one-on-one meeting took place in the Oval Office 4 months later. It was a 10-minute photo op, says an advisor to McChrystal. Obama clearly didn't know anything about him, he said in that book. And it goes on to say who he was. Here's the guy who's going to run his effing war, but he didn't seem very engaged. The boss was pretty disappointed. Try to imagine if that happened at the Grammys, going after President Obama while he was in office.
Hold on a second. Stan McChrystal was a uniformed military officer who worked for the commander-in-chief. Hold on.
Candidate for the presidency of the United States.
She's, as much as Fox and the president would love to treat her as the sitting president of the United States, she's just a person.
A former first lady, a former secretary of state, and
so she went at criticize her on the Grammys, but she can't elsewhere. Because it seems wherever she does it, she needs to be told to be quiet. Which help us figure out where she can be critical and how. The Grammys are off limits.
Obviously, it was her decision to go out and do that. I just think that when it time and time again, the book and everywhere else is all about why excuses for why she wasn't elected and going after the sitting president of the United States.
Read a book about how he likes McDonald's.
I'm just asking, you said you think it's classy. I'm just saying I disagree. I mean, it's a question of the decisions that you make and what kind of mark you want to make on the country at this point.
I'm comfortable with the decisions that Secretary Clinton has made in terms of class and dignity as opposed to the sitting president.
Okay. And you think that she is going to come out and say more?
I think literally, imminently, she is going to say that to do it again, she should have fired her.
Philippe, thanks. Good to see you tonight.
Thank you
Thanks for coming by. So when we come back tonight, we have come to expect the unexpected from the Trump White House, as Philippe would agree, I'm sure. So will the first State of the Union address be the same tonight? Senior White House advisor Mercedes Schlapp joins us with a preview coming up. This comes as President Trump ramps up the rhetoric against the Taliban after a wave of deadly attacks hit Afghanistan. So will there be more aggression, potentially more boots on the ground? We're going to talk about that when we come back.
Innocent people are being killed left and right. Bombing in the middle of children, in the middle of families, bombing, killing all over Afghanistan.
I don't have my wallet, so.
Perfect. You can send a digital payment.
I don't have one of those payment apps.
Perfect. You have a US-based bank account, right?
I have Wells Fargo.
Perfect. Then you should have Zelle.
Perfect.
Perfect.
The #1 mobile banking app just got better.
Does your coach use Zelle too?
Of course.
Another way we're building better every day.
For my constipation, my doctor recommended I switch to Miralax. Stimulant laxatives make your body go by forcefully stimulating the nerves in your colon. Miralax is different. It works with the water in your body to hydrate and soften, unblocking your system naturally. Miralax.
Not having a good breakfast can make you feel like your day never started. Get going with Carnation Breakfast Essentials High Protein Drink. It has 21 vitamins and minerals with 15 grams of protein to help you be your best. Try our high protein drink.
I was up and down with my weight my entire life.
When diets don't work, it's easy to quit. From a top diet 7 years straight comes the new Rapid Results.
If you see immediate results, you stick with it.
Lose up to 16 pounds in just 4 weeks. With one-on-one support, you'll see change fast. Eat 6 times a day. The secret is what you eat and when. Call 1-800-96-JENNY and start Rapid Results for $16 plus the cost of food and get $70 in free food. Hurry, call now.
I love shopping, but my biggest challenge is fit. With Stitch Fix, my stylist finds that perfect fit for me.
Stitch Fix is my online personal stylist.
I don't really like going shopping. Stitch Fix is super easy. I tell them my style, boom, the box comes right to my door. No trip to the mall.
And you pick your price range, so everything's within your budget.
Having a great outfit on changes the tone of my whole day. Stitch Fix gets me ready for anything.
My style, my fit, delivered right to my door. Sign up at StitchFix.com.
It's me and my